Hello, it's Helen from Journal with Purpose and welcome to my latest journaling video. I'm going to be using this A5 dotted notebook from London Gifties, which I keep inside this paisley etched cover from Start Bay Notebooks. I've completed quite a few pages now in this journal and I'm really loving using it for some creative journaling and also getting lots of thoughts out of my head. As always, I will try and mention throughout any specific products that I use, just in case you're interested, and I will also leave them linked in the description box down below. The weather's turned pretty wet and windy here in the UK, so I really wanted to create something that had a lovely, cosy feel to it. I'm going to use some watercolour on my journal pages to start with, so I've put some scrap pieces of paper underneath just to make sure that it doesn't run through onto the other pages. The watercolour paints I'm using are from London Gifties, and I'll be using a travel paintbrush from Skoda Brushes. I knew that I wanted to mix up quite a lot of paint, so I'm just using an old cracked side plate. I'm mixing up two different shades of green and I'm adding lots of water to these. And as always, my journal pages seem to be inspired by nature and the colours outside, so I wanted it to reflect the changing colours in the leaves. And I'm using this watercolour paint to kind of mimic some washi tape strips running down the side of each of the pages. So I'm starting off with that paler green and painting it right to the edge of the page. One of the things that I love about doing this is that you don't have to be precise at all to get a really lovely effect. I'm now using that deeper shade of green and I'm just dropping some of the colour onto the wet paint. And I'm then just leaving it to do its thing and spread with inside the lighter colour. And with watercolour paints, you have so many different colours that you can mix together and really play around to get the colours that you're looking for in your journal. As you can see, over time, that paint mixes really nicely and gives you really interesting shapes on the side of your pages. Whilst those pages are properly drying, I'm going to work on creating a pocket and some other decorative elements. You may have seen the news that I've recently launched on Patreon, which I'm just so excited about and so thrilled to see people already joining me over there. And the printables that I'm using in this are the bundle that I've made available to my top tier patrons. And I thought it would be fun to play around with these and use them in my journal. So I've started off by folding over the flaps on the pocket and I'm using a bone folder tool to make sure that they're nice and crisp. And I've printed these elements out onto thick paper, but for the tags I wanted them to be just a little bit firmer. So I'm going to add some gesso to the back, and that's a really good way of being able to just add another layer of thickness and make any of the printables from anybody just a little bit firmer. If you're using gesso, I would always recommend using an old paintbrush that you're not too bothered about, because it can really make the bristles quite stiff even if you wash it thoroughly. And while the gesso is drying, I'm going to use some of these leaf elements from the printables. So I've loosely cut around all of them, and you could definitely fussy cut them out to make sure that you're cutting right along the leaf details. But I decided that I would just loosely cut and then add some of this distress ink in Vintage Photo using an ink blending tool. And I'm going to do that all the way around the edges of the leaf, just so that it takes off the brightness of the white paper. If you are interested in seeing what's available over on my Patreon page, I would of course be delighted to see you there, and I will leave a link down below. If you're not interested in Patreon but would still like to have a look at this printable bundle, it is available in the shop section over on my blog. The next thing I'm going to do is add a label to my pocket, and I think these are some old Martha Stewart labels. They were sent to me in some Happy Mail, and I thought it would be lovely to have that splash of red on my pocket. And the title that I'm adding is Messages of Hope. And I thought it'd be really nice to write on the back of those tags and just write some little messages to myself, so that if I'm ever feeling a little bit low, I can pull them out and read the messages that I've written to myself on the back. I love using pockets in my journals. They're such a great way to be able to add some extra decorative elements, and also include things like tickets from when we can go on days out, and photos, or even little letters that I've received from people in the post. It's just a really handy way of keeping a few things together. Now that I've added the label, I'm also going to add a little bit of extra decoration by gluing on one of these leaves on the front. And to glue it down, I'm using Pritt Stick. I'm really happy with how that's looking, just really nice and simple to do with a little bit of decoration on top. I'm now working out where I want my pocket to go on my journal page, and I decided it would look nice if it had some form of backing behind it. So I've got a pile of old book pages that I looked through, and I thought this really lovely aged page would look great. So I'm just tearing that down until I've got the size that I'm happy with. I think old book pages are a lovely way to add a quick vintage feel to your journal pages. I'm using that same Pritt Stick now to glue that onto my page, and I'm also then adding that glue along the flaps on the pocket. And I'm going to turn that over and press it down firmly onto my page. I'm really happy with how that's looking and how all of the colours are really tying in nicely with each other. I then decided to add some washi tape just for a little bit of extra decoration down the left hand side of the pocket, and that roll of washi is from London Gifties. I'm now just checking that those tags are completely dry with the gesso on the back and they've firmed up nicely. And I'm using a hole punching tool just along the top so that I can add a little bit of ribbon. I had a lot of fun creating these printables. The pocket and tag come from a big mixed media background that I created using lots of different acrylic paints, stenciling and stamping, and it was so nice to then be able to turn that into some different designs. To add a little more decoration on the front of the tags, I'm using some stickers from London Gifties. And they're in the shape of postage stamps, so I thought that was really nice and tied in with that theme of it being messages of hope. I've been so grateful for my journals over the past few months particularly. I feel like I've always got so many thoughts swirling around in my head, and being able to take some time out to get a bit creative, but most importantly, write down all of those thoughts has just been so good for me. It's helped me to get a bit of perspective on everything really, and just get a bit clear on how I want to be spending my time, what I want to be doing, what I want to be doing less of, and it's just been so good for me. I've recently released a blog post if you're interested on reflective journaling, just giving some of my thoughts and ideas on how you can really use it to try and help calm your mind and just get a little bit of distance from everything that might be swirling around in your head. I'm now adding some of that coloured ribbon through the holes on the top of the tags. The next thing I want to use is this hand-lettered quote on a watercolour background from my printables, and it says, "Take time to enjoy the little things." And I decided that I wanted to cut it up because I wanted to make sure that I left plenty of space for writing. So I'm just checking the sizing, and I'm also going to use some torn old book paper along the side. And that helps to just tie it in a little bit with the book page I've used on the right. And once I'm happy with how that's looking, I'm going to glue it down. When I'm journaling, I always try and balance the creativity along the writing side. And of course, adding all of the creative elements isn't at all essential for keeping a journal. But what I do find is that by playing around with a few different supplies, it really helps me to just calm my mind and switch off for a while. I'm just having fun, playing around with things, and it immediately stops me just overthinking and worrying. So those are all glued down now, and I'm just adding again a little bit of extra decoration. I've added one of the leaves, and I'm also using that same washi tape strip, which I've torn in half along the middle. I'm really happy now with how those pages are starting to come together. Just before I started filming, I received this lovely box from Christine at London Gifties, and she's included some beautiful wooden rubber block stamps. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to show you what she sent. These are new arrivals, and some of them I believe are already listed in the shop, and some will be appearing over the next few days. They've got such gorgeous designs on them, so I knew straight away that I wanted to find a way of incorporating them into my journal pages. I really love all of the different beautiful designs on these stamps, and I already know that I'm going to be able to find lots of fun ways to use them in my journals. If you do place an order with London Gifties, if you use the code Helen, you will get a free roll of washi tape included. And Christine has told me that the roll that she has been including has nearly run out. So she sent me these new rolls of washi tape to have a look at. They're gold and silver foiled. And once the other ones have run out, you will now get one of these beautiful tapes included in your order. I've picked the 2 stamps that I want to use on this spread, and I've got a new pad of Stays On ink, and I found that it's really wet. So one of the things that I've been doing is using my stamps on a scrap piece of paper first, just to take off that first layer of ink. So I then get a much more muted look on my pages, and also Stays On ink can really seep through your journal pages, particularly when it's new, sticky and wet like this. So I definitely recommend, if you want to use them on your journals, it's worth stamping them out first and then adding it to your journal pages. The 2 designs that I've picked are the old vintage looking teapot and also the nature circle. And I just thought that tied in really nicely with the quote of enjoy all the little things, because a lovely cup of tea and some nature are definitely high up there on my list. So as you can see, it's a slightly more muted print, but I'd much rather that than have the ink seeping straight through journal pages. The next thing I'm going to do is add my little messages of hope to the back of my tags, and for this I'm using a Muji gel pen. So I'm going to write 2 different messages. One is nothing lasts forever, focus on everything you can do, and also this is the perfect time to reflect, learn and grow. And I really love knowing that they're going to be tucked inside that pocket, so when I flip through my journal, probably at a much later date, I'll be able to pull them out and just have them there as that lovely reminder that at the moment there might be quite a few restrictions or things that we don't feel able to do. But there's still loads of lovely things. I'm certainly taking the time to really sit and absorb some online classes, try out new skills and go for beautiful walks with my dog. Before moving on to the journal writing, I decided to add one more leaf down that left-hand side, just to balance out the look of the page a little. For the date, I'm using a Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen with a firm nib that's from Colt Pens. In my journal writing, I'll be writing about that whilst I miss the ease of how things used to be before, I still believe there's plenty of reasons to be hopeful for the future. So I'm going to be writing about the sorts of things that I really want to be doing and focusing on over the coming months, and how also to me it's been a vital reminder of how important it is to look after ourselves, look after our health. I've been trying to take more time to really cook healthily, take more time to enjoy my meals, to do some exercise nearly every day if I can, and also take lots of breaks. And I think it's really easy. I certainly fall into the trap of working really hard lots of the time, but also those breaks are just so important. And also because I've been taking lots of online classes and watching YouTube videos, I found now that I'm just brimming with new ideas, things that I want to try out, and I really want to take that with me over the coming months, especially with Here it's now starting to get dark much earlier, and I want to make the most of that time if we're indoors, of thinking about all of the wonderful things that I can do and how I can best take care of myself and my family during that time. I really hope that you're doing well, and I hope that you enjoyed this video and that it's hopefully given you some new ideas for your journal. If you have enjoyed the video, it would be great if you'd leave it with a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel, I would love it if you would consider subscribing. If you've got any questions or comments, then please do leave them down below. I also just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's already joined me over on Patreon. I have to say I was really nervous about launching on there, but I've just had so many lovely comments and kind feedback, and I'm just so excited about being able to use that channel to be able to share more content and videos and printables. I'd been thinking about it for a really long time, but I wanted to make sure that I was happy with what I was going to be able to offer there. So just thank you to everyone that's even just taken a look. It really means the world to me. Well, thank you ever so much for watching this video. Stay well, and I look forward to speaking to you really soon in the next one.